Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on basic grammar 1. So the first thing that we're going to be discussing is the particle O. The particle O indicates that the noun phrase following it is the focal point of the utterance. It comes before 1. A noun phrase standing alone, as in book titles, and 2. A noun phrase beginning a sentence or any independent clause. So if you remember nothing else about a noun phrase, what I want you to remember is that it precedes or comes before a noun or noun phrase. Okay, so that is what you need to remember. And to see an example, we have this question right here. And just before we get started, the word what is olea, and this contains a particle O, and this is one of those exceptions where what is not a noun or noun phrase, but it still contains the particle O. So there will be a few words that contain the particle O, but that most cases you'll see a particle O that's before a noun or noun phrases. Okay, probably like 95% of the time if I had to guess. So here's our little scenario that I want you to kind of see. So olea lenemea is what is this thing? And basically whenever they ask something like this, what is this or what is this thing? The thing that you're going to tell them what it is, the thing that they're asking about, is going to be a noun or a noun phrase. It's going to be probably a person, place, or thing. And so when we do that, we present a noun or noun phrase. And so this thing right here that I'm talking about, presentative sentence structure, is the exact same thing that what we're talking about. The presentative sentence structure is basically the particle O in a noun phrase. That's all I want you to remember. Okay, the presentative sentence structure has a particle O because it contains a noun phrase in it. Okay, so basically I want you to think I'm presenting a noun or noun phrase. So let's say they're pointing towards a book and they're not familiar with the Bible. Then you could say ole tusi paia. Okay, because the Bible is a thing, it's a book, and so I need to put a particle O before that, and then I say what it is. Okay. And let's say they're a kid and they don't know what a car is, and you say, well, that's a red car. It's o se ta'avale mo. Okay? So a car is, again, a thing, and so we need to use a particle O to present that noun phrase. Okay? So let's talk about the negative presentative. This is the same thing, but the opposite. I'm negating my noun phrase or my noun, okay? And so let's say someone said, who took the car? You would say, whoops, let's use a highlighter. Oai na ave le ta'avale. Oai na ave le ta'avale. So let's say someone asked that and it wasn't you, you're just like, it's not me. Well, you would negate it, you would negate the noun phrase and you would say, e leo au. Okay, and so let's just break this down a little bit. You're saying e leo au. I still have the particle O from here on. Let's just ignore the e le for right now. I have oau right there. So let's say if you took the car, then that would be what you say. You would say oau. Because I or me, this is what that means. Au is I or me. And the O is preceding that noun phrase. I or me is a noun. Okay, it's a person, and so you need to have a particle O before that person because it's a noun. But then we're negating this noun. We're saying it wasn't me. It's not this thing. Okay, so the way that you negate things in Samoan is you put that a lay in front of it. And since I'm negating a noun or noun phrase, I still have that particle O, and then it would be oau. But what they do is they just combine this thing and make it one word. Okay, so that becomes one word, and it kind of means it's not or not, and that's how you would negate things in Samoan. So the way that you do that is with an ele before the particle O. So that is what you do to negate things. So let's say someone asked the same question again. They said, what is this thing? And you just wanted to be funny and you said, well, that's not a red car. Okay, let's say you wanted to negate it's not a red car. Or let's say someone said, another question like, what kind of car does John drive? Okay, and you said, well, he doesn't drive a red car, so it's not a red car. Let's translate. It's not a red car. Okay, it's not a red car. We're going to be saying this statement. Okay, so basically, I take the same thing. I still use that, but all I'm doing is negating it now. If all I wanted to say is it's a red car, then I would just stick with the highlighted portion. But now I'm wanting to say it's not a red car, and so basically I just throw an ele in front of that particle o, and that becomes eleo se ta'avale mu mu. So it would be eleo say, and then you'd say the rest of this statement right here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Whenever you want to negate something in Samoan, you put a ele in front of it, and whenever you're negating a noun phrase or noun, it's always going to turn into a leo because of the particle o. You still need to have that particle o because you're still bringing up a noun phrase or noun. But when I'm negating that, it turns into leo. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. And if it's not, I encourage you to pause the video at this point and rewatch. Okay, so let's move on. And we're going to be talking about the equative sentence structure. So right here I have the equative sentence structure, and I said no verbs. Well, there's no verbs here. What I'm saying is there's no action verbs. This equative sentence structure does contain an is or are, which are verbs, but I'm saying there's no action verbs. Okay, so in this case, just think, okay, there is an is or are, but there's no action verbs. There's no other kinds of verbs in the sentence. Okay, and so what the equative sentence structure is you have a particle o. Okay, it's basically the presentative sentence structure that we're talking on the last slide, and then I have a second o right here, the second o, and that's basically an is or are thing. It's is or are. So what you're doing is you're saying an is or are statement, or you're presenting a noun phrase and you're saying it is this thing, or these things are this thing, is kind of what you're saying. You're presenting a noun or noun phrase with this particle o right here, so that's what this is right here. Okay, I use a particle o to present a noun phrase. And then my second o becomes the is or are statement, or if you want to, you can think of that as an equal sign. The equative sentence structure, it's equal. This thing is equal to this thing, is basically what kind of sentence structure we're talking about. And then you're saying whatever it equals, or whatever it is. Okay? And so this sentence right here is that person is a teacher. I have an is in the sentence, and basically we need to figure out where is the noun phrase. Well, the noun phrase is that person. The person is a person. Person is one of the definitions of a noun. So person is a noun, and that person is a noun phrase. So before that person, I need to have a particle o, and that is what this is right here. O lena tangata, and then I have an is, and so I need to use my second o to say is. Okay, so this second o is an is or a are, or an equal sign if you want. So I use a second o, and then I state whatever that person is. And so that person is a teacher. Okay, so hopefully this is kind of making sense. The next example right here, I want you to kind of try to do this one on your own. So identify the noun phrase, and then state whatever that noun phrase is, or whatever it equals. Okay? So I hope you paused the video. If you did it, then you'll have noted that this thing right here, this thing is the noun phrase, a person, place, or thing. So I went easy on you. I used person, place, or thing, and I used the exact definition inside of it. So this thing is a noun, and a noun phrase, and the thing that it's equal to or is a book. So I use a noun phrase with a particle o right here, o lenemea, and my second o is equaling that thing to the first thing that I'm presenting. So this thing is a book. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense. If it's not, I encourage you to rewatch. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the negative equative sentence structure. So this is statements like, this thing is not this thing, okay? Or you're presenting a noun phrase and you're saying it's not this, okay? So the way that you do that is you use, again, we have that particle O right here, and then we'll have a noun phrase, and then we have this eleo again, we're negating whatever it is, okay? So we still have that particle O, which is, and then the ele right there, okay, the ele makes it is not, or it's not, one of the two. So we present with the particle O again, we present with the particle O a noun phrase, and then we're saying it's not whatever we're saying it's not. So in this example, that song is not a good song. So I have a noun phrase right here, and so I need to precede that noun phrase with the particle O, so that's olana pese. And then I need to say it is not or is not, and the way that I do that is with a leo, and so I say a leo se pese lele. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. Again, I want you to pause the video for this statement right here, identify the noun phrase, and then figure out what it's not. Okay? So hopefully you were able to figure out that thing, this right here, that thing is the noun phrase, and so I put a O before that thing, and so that is olanamea. And then I'm saying is not, and so I say a leo, and then I would say a book, which is se tusi. Okay? Olanamea a leo se tusi is the way that I say that thing is not a book. Okay? So that's one way to do the negative equative sentence structure. There's also this way, there's the backwards way, and the backwards way is probably going to be counterintuitive because we don't really say this a lot in English. So a lot of times we'll say this thing is not this thing. Well, in this second way of doing the negative equative sentence structure, you're saying is not this thing. So you're saying not this thing is this thing. Okay? So basically you're negating whatever you're saying first, and then you're putting the noun phrase last. So if that didn't make sense, you're saying you're negating whatever at the beginning, and then you're putting your noun phrase at the end. So, for example, not a good song is that song. So I'm putting the negation at the very beginning of this sentence. So, e leo se pese lele at the beginning, and then I'm saying is that song, and that's olana pese. So this is a particle O at the end right here, and so this is a little bit of counterintuitive. It will take a little bit of time to probably get used to. The way that I usually say is I stick with this one, but you need to be familiar with the bottom part because they say it that way. And in my mind, I can't think of which one they use more often, but you will hear it this way. Okay? And so you need to be able to understand this at least. Okay? So in this second sentence, again, I would like you to pause the video, try to figure out what the thing that they're negating or not blank thing is this thing. Okay? So pause the video. So hopefully you were able to. So not a book is the thing that we're negating, and then we're saying is that thing. Okay? So a leo se tusi is not a book. And then we're saying is that thing, olanamea. Okay? So hopefully you were able to make sense of these two different sentence structures. There's the equative sentence structure and the negative equative sentence structure. And basically the difference between the two is one is equaling one to another and one is not equaling one thing to another. Okay? So hopefully those examples have helped. Moving on a little bit, we're going to be talking about determiners. So determiners determine plurality. So they determine whether it's singular or plural. So if I wanted to pluralize something in English, a lot of times I put an S on the end of it. We have 2 soccer balls. Okay, and the way that you do that is you put an S on the end of a noun phrase a lot. Okay? Well, in Samoan, the way that I pluralize a noun phrase is I don't put an S on the end of the noun phrase. I put something before the noun phrase. And we've kind of been doing this already. You'll note that these are my determiners. Le, say ni, and I have a few others, okay? But if I go back in the video, you'll know that we've used this at the very beginning, okay? So in my presentative sentence structure, I had a lay right here, and I had a say right here, okay? So basically, we're going to be clarifying this part of the noun phrase. So a noun phrase a lot of times will have a determiner in the statement, okay? So, and the way that I determine plurality of that noun phrase is with a determiner. And so here is the determiner. So I put a determiner before my noun phrase. It's after the particle O, before the noun phrase, to determine plurality. Okay? So if I have a lay right here, that means that my noun or noun phrase is singular, and the closest thing to lay in English is the. It's not exactly equal to the. You'll see lay in places where you wouldn't put the in English, but it's the closest thing to it in English. Okay? So the refers to something definite and specific in existence. So lay right here is for specific things, okay? I'm just going to put SPEC for specific, and singular, okay? And I'm going to put sing for singular. So when I'm talking about a specific and singular thing, I put lay in front of it. And so this example right here, the book, I'm talking about a specific and a single amount of books. So I put oletusi, and the closest thing that you can say to that in the translation is the book. You're talking about a singular book and a specific book, and so that's why I put a lay in front of that. Okay, so moving on to the next thing, I have no lay. This part right here, you take away the lay, and the word becomes plural. Okay, so if I just had this right here, otusi, that makes it plural. And so when I take away lay, that means it's plural. Whoops, I need to use my pen. So plural, and it's specific still. So specific. So if I'm talking about bring me the books, okay? Again, it's plural, and you're talking about a specific set of books that you want, okay? So that is when you take away the lay. So if I just, like shown, I took away this lay. There's no lay right here. In the above sentence I had lay, so that made it singular. But now I take away that lay and I'm pluralizing it. And I'm still talking about specific amount of books, but it's not a single amount anymore. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our non-specific determiners. And so here is say. So say, the closest thing to say in Samoan, in English, is one of these. It could be an, or any one thing. It refers to any one thing existing or not existing or of unknown existence. So sometimes you can be referring to some things that don't exist. And so the way that I want you to remember say is that it's singular, okay, singular, and it's non-specific. It's non-specific. So in this example right here, I have osetusi. I'm talking about a single amount of books, and I'm talking about a non-specific book. So like, let's say someone said, "What is that?" And you just said, "Oh, that's a book. It's a non-specific book. It is a book, but it's not a specific book," if that makes sense. So closest thing that you can translate that to in English is a book. It's just a single amount of books, but it's not any specific book. And then our last example here is ni or nisi. So you could say ni is plural, and you could also write this as nisi. So ni or nisi. So the C is sometimes used and sometimes not. And again, this is plural. Okay, this is plural, but it's non-specific again. Okay, so non-specific. So you'll see onitusi. This is the example that I give you. It's some books, and this is kind of like the one where we took away the lay. And this is honestly one of the most grammatically incorrect ways that people use these determiners. Sometimes they use the one where you take away the lay, and they use the ni interchangeably. But the ni, this is a way that we pluralize things that are non-specific. Okay, so we're talking about a plural amount of books that aren't specific. So like, let's say someone asked you, hey, what do you need anything? And you said, yeah, bring me some books. You're not talking about any specific books. You're just saying, hey, just bring me some books. They're not specific. You want a plural amount of books, and it doesn't matter what kind they are. But if someone said, hey, do you need anything? Hey, can you bring me my math books? This would be the one that is more specific, and it would be this one right here. Okay, so I hope that clarification kind of helped know the difference between the two. So obviously there's a lot to take in here. If something if you didn't quite catch something, I encourage you to pause the video and rewind and watch whatever you need to again. So at the very end here, I would like to just kind of go over some grammar principles together. So what is the particle O? So what is this particle O? So if you watch the video, you should be able to answer this. Pause it, and if you're watching with someone, explain it to the person next to you. Okay, if you got it correctly, the particle O, and I guess that's not a great O. The particle O just comes before nouns and noun phrases. So if you said that in your mind or to the person next to you, you'd be correct. So basically, a presentative sentence structure. What is a presentative sentence structure? Well, it's just the particle O, and then it has a noun phrase with it. Okay. And if I had a negative presentative sentence structure, what is that? So pause the video and ask yourself. Well, I still have a particle O in the negative presented structure. I'm just negating whatever that is, so I'm putting an a-lay in front of it, so it turns into a le-o. And then you put a noun phrase right here. So not a book, or not a tree, or not a coach, or something to that effect, okay? Awesome. So what is the equative sentence structure? I would like you to pause the video and ask yourself, what's the equative sentence structure? Okay, so the equative sentence structure, I have this particle O, I have a noun phrase right here, so I'm just going to put an NP for noun phrase. And then I have a second O, and then I put whatever that thing is equal to. So this is an equal thing, or this is an is or are. Okay? So that is the equative sentence structure. What is the negative equative sentence structure? Okay, so pause the video and ask yourself that, or talk to your partner. The negative equative sentence structure could be one of two ways. It could be the particle O, and then I have a noun phrase, okay? And then I have a let-o right here, and then I say whatever that is not equal to. So I could say a noun phrase is not this thing, okay? Or the other way that you could say it is you negate the beginning. So this thing, not a thing is this thing, or not a book is this thing, or something to that effect. So you're negating whatever you said first, and then you're saying an is. This is an is or are statement, and then you put in that noun phrase. So this would have a noun phrase. Okay. So if you remember those, basically you have a particle O, and then you have an a-le-o, okay, da-da-da, or you have an a-le-o, da-da-da, and then you have an o, da-da-da, okay? So hopefully you were able to get that. And then the last question is, what is our determiner? So we're going to go out of order this time. What is my determiner for plural things? So for plural things and specific. So which determiner would I use if I'm talking about a plural amount of things, but it's a specific amount of things that I need? Okay, so if you got that right, then the determiner I use for this is I just take away a lay. I just put something after a particle O. So if I'm saying books, I'm talking about a specific amount of books, then I just put a books right there, and then I put a particle O before the books. And in Samoan, that looks like O tusi, so it would look like O tusi. Okay? So hopefully that you were able to get that. If not, then you can remember it now. Okay, so what is the determiner I use for a specific, so again, a specific thing, and a singular thing, okay? So pause the video, ask yourself or your neighbor which determiner I would use for a specific thing and a singular thing. Well, this one is for lay. I use the determiner lay, and so if I wanted to say bring me a specific book, the book, then I would use the particle O, then I'd use lay, and then I'd use to see. Okay? So hopefully that was helpful. Okay, last two. Let's do a plural amount, and non-specific. Okay, non-specific. So again, pause the video, ask yourself or your neighbor. Okay, the one that I would use for this would be ni or nisi. Okay, so hopefully you were able to get that. And our last one is for plural. No, sorry, it'd be singular. It'd be singular and non-specific again. Okay. So ask your neighbor or yourself which one you would use for this. Okay, so this would be say. Okay, so say would be your answer. And honestly, okay, so and another good way to kind of test yourself is what is the equivalent to these things right here? And then adding an S on the end. So the way that I would put one more here. So the equivalent to the in Samoan is lay, and the real meaning of that, we talked about that just now, is it's a singular thing and a specific thing. Okay, then so I'm just going to leave that lay. An, or any of one thing would be taking away the lay, so I just have that. If I add an S on something and it's non-specific, or sorry, this one would be specific, then I would just take away the lay. Sorry, I am going crazy. This is say right here, and then this is the one that's you don't have a lay. Okay, so if I have a plural amount of a noun or noun phrase, then I just take away this lay. I have no lay or anything else in there. And then some would be ni or nisi. Okay, so hopefully this little exercise kind of helped you, and I encourage you to rewatch it if necessary. And we're going to be going over the second part of basic grammar here in the next video. So get this stuff down, and then we'll go on to the next part of our basic grammar. So, tofa soifua.